Good morning and welcome to this morning's episode of The Amateur in the Morning. I am your host, the Forex Amateur. Today is the 22nd of October and it's a very sunny Thursday morning here in Durban. Kind of dreading the sunny weather these days because it comes with a whole lot of humidity. But anyway, we take what the good Lord gives us. So I'm going to get straight into the charts. As you know, these sessions are purely for me to break down my thoughts of what I'm looking at in terms of the markets for the day. And remember, this is specific to the synthetic markets for now. As I progress, or as I begin to get a bit more traction in terms of this, I might then digress into other markets as well. But for now, my focus is primarily the synthetic markets. The reason for this is because this is fundamentally what I do trade on a daily basis if I am trading, right? So this is my biggest focus because I've done, based on my personality, I've decided that this is the best markets for me to trade, as it's not that affected by fundamental aspects. Secondly, it's very volatile and liquid, so it moves very, very quickly. And according to my sort of personality, I've decided that this market works for me. Remember, before you get into trading, you have to make a decision on what works for you. Decide what type of markets you want to be trading. Decide what times of days are you able to trade, or what time of the day are you able to trade. Decide what type of strategy or what type of trader you want to be, whether you want to be a scalper, whether you want to be an intraday trader, whether you want to be a swing trader. Make all of these decisions prior to getting into the markets, because you have to ensure you understand yourself. The reason I put this there, and this is just something that I'm speaking off the dome right now, is because one of my major challenges of late has been the fact that I am transitioning from a scalper to a swing trader, right? And I'll be very honest, that is a very, very difficult transition. But you have to constantly work on it every day, and that is what I do at the moment. So let's get into the charts. But before we do that, let me just throw in my little disclaimer in there. Remember, I am not qualified to provide investment, financial, or even trading advice. Everything I speak about on these sessions is purely just my own opinion on these markets, and any trades that I take with cash that I am willing to risk, right? So if you are trading, ensure that you do your own analysis, you do your own research, and any trades you take with cash that you are willing to risk, because God's honest reality is the fact that you could lose your entire investment, right? So when I get into the charts this morning, I'm going to be talking about volatility 10. I'm going to be talking about volatility 75, 50, and the baby of the bunch that we've just added this week, which is volatility 25-1S. Now, based on yesterday's session that I did cover, we did get some really, really, really good moves yesterday. So I do hope that, a few of you guys were able to take advantage of these moves. But I'm going to go in when I speak about this charts this morning. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I did speak about yesterday. If I do leave anything out, then my apologies. And you can go back and watch yesterday's episode, and you can be able to catch up on whatever it is that I do leave out. So let's start on volatility 10. Looking at volatility 10, I am starting on the daily chart. I'm just going to grab my annotator here, and we're going to talk about it. Now, yesterday on volatility 10, I did speak about the fact that we could get price driving into this area here and reaching for this pink area that I've got highlighted here at the top. And as you can see, that this basically pushed up really, really nicely. And it was basically bullish for the most part of yesterday. Now, I do remember previously I had highlighted this level here, and I did mention that if we break below this level, we will be looking for sells. If we fail to break below that level, we will be taking buys back to the upside. And as you can see, that did work out really, really well. Now, looking at today, I will expect it to keep going to the upside. So I will be expecting further upward momentum for the day. But looking at the volume in today's candle, there is a huge probability that later on in the day, we're going to get a hard rejection of the top and maybe close with a large wick, right? So that is something that is highly probable, especially since so early in the day, we've already got such huge volumes coming in on this market, right? So just be very wary of that. Looking at the 4-hour chart, we can see that price formed a nice higher low in here and took out the higher high. So that is telling us in terms of structure, it is still bullish. You can see it breaking previous structures in here as well to the upside. So that's telling us that overall we are still bullish. So I will be expecting price to reach into this area here. When it happens, I don't really know, right? But it is my expectation. But looking at the volumes for what's happened today, I will not be surprised if we do get a young retest before we see a pushback to the upside, because the market is currently overextended on, or price is overextended at the moment on this specific chart. If we look at the 1 hour chart as well, you can see that we are getting presence of sellers in the middle of this upward momentum. And that is telling us that there is a higher probability that we would most likely get in a possible retracement, right? I'm not going to go into the reason as to why I would say that this is indicative of a possible retracement, but based on my strategy, it does tell me that there is a possible retracement that would happen. With that, when that happens, not really something that I can share at this point, but remember, we are chasing that overall pink zone that I have highlighted over here. On the upside, right? Now, I did get a few questions as to why I use pink zones on my chart as a dude, and I guess I'm just exploring my feminine side, right? So it's just something that I feel is very clean on my charts, and I try not to use much darker colors on my charts because overall I want to be able to focus on price action. As you can see, I just have one moving average on here, and I just actually put that on this week just as an additional confluence, right? And once I no longer need it, I will remove it from the charts. My major focus when it comes to trading is focusing just on what price action is doing, and that is how I make my decisions. So as you can see, I don't use any other indicators, right? So that is why I need my charts to be clean, and I just use lighter colors on my charts just so that I can focus on the candlesticks itself. So let's move over to volatility 75 and let's talk about this. This is also a bit of a front runner, but it is a bit laggy compared to what volatility 10 has been doing over the past couple of weeks, as that has been the front runner that we've had in terms of trading, right? Now, looking at volatility 75, I did mention on yesterday's session that we could see this market reaching up into this level in here. And as you can see that it is still bullish and it is basically finding support on this major level that I did touch on yesterday as well. So it broke above and it is finding support above that. We see candles trading below it, right? But still coming back to the upside. So I will expect in today's movements for us to be reaching back into that level that I have highlighted on there. It might just keep going up thereafter, right? But that is not something that I am expecting at this point. But for now, I am still bullish on this market. If we drop down to the 4-hour time frame, you can have a look at a few of the levels that I am looking at the moment. I am looking at this level as a possible rejection, right? So getting a possible rejection on this, or possible retracement back down into the zone before we continue back to the upside, right? Another thing that I am looking at the moment is we do have a 1, 2, 3 touch on here. So in these instances, when I do see this, I normally see perhaps a structure break and then a pullback in that instance, right? So that is what I am currently looking at. I did have this level marked in yesterday for us to take a buy from here. And unfortunately, price has failed to come down into my level. Not that I am now giving up hope. I will expect price to perhaps bounce off here and come back down into my level. If that does happen, then I'll most likely be looking to take buys from that level in there. This is a bit of a fib setup as well. If you grab your fib from here to there, you'll notice that this is the 50% retracement, right? Or 50% retracement zone, if you want to call it that, or the price reversal zone. And that is what has given us all of this momentum pushing over to the upside as a confluence. Remember, the fib does not move the markets, but it is a very good, very, very good confluence to use for possible entry, specific entry prices, right? So that is something that you can use very, very well. Now, looking at this in here, the reason for this move, as you can see, we have this level in here, price pulled down to sort of take our liquidity below these lows, and now it is pushing over to the upside. So I will expect a pullback, a possible pullback for today, right, into around this area in here for price to continue back to the upside, and then an overall pull back into this lower area for price to then continue in its uptrend, right? So basically, I will expect a bounce in and around that area, come down into this area, and then a push up into around there again, right? So that is my thoughts on volatility 75. Let's move on to volatility 50, right? Now, volatility 50 yesterday. So basically, every single chart that I spoke about yesterday as to what could possibly happen, it happened almost exactly like that. And I'm saying almost, I'm being I'm being modest in saying almost, right? Because I don't want to be big-headed, but basically all four charts that I did cover on yesterday's session played out pretty much like that, right? So if you do watch these sessions, like I said, remember, this is not trading advice. This is basically my outlook of the markets, and I have been successful up to 80% of my calls, or even 90% of my calls for the longest part are basically on point, right? But remember, you take this information back, you go and you have a look at your charts, and you gather your own sort of conclusion, and you take trades based off of that, right? Don't just take trades based off the fact that I said the market is going to move up, because what could happen is you could get trapped in a move, and then overall the market does move up, right? And then you're going to come back and be like, hey, the Forex amateur told me to do this, and you're going to drop nasty ass comments on my videos and shit like that. And I'm really not looking to get into that type of business, you know. So let's just keep this clean. Looking at volatility 50, I did speak about the fact that yesterday we will see the market overall bullish for yesterday, and we will see it pushing up. And as you can see, and I did mark up this zone as well as a possible rejection zone, as you can see, that has basically played out to the pip, right? So be very, 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 very wary of the stuff that I do speak about on these sessions. So speaking for today, I will expect this week at least to be filled with today's candle. So at minimum, we will expect this market to come back into that area in there. Another thing that I am looking at for today is I am looking at a possible pullback into here, right? A possible pullback into here, and that will give us like a third touch on this upper trend line. Apologies for my doodles. A third touch into the upper trend line before we see this market come back to the downside and then push back to the upside, right? So overall for today, I am still expecting buys on volatility 50 before I expect that pullback to continue in the actual trend that we are trending in at the moment. Now, looking at this market in here, if I were to like mark up a specific zone, I would possibly mark up this level here as that level where we could get the retracement coming back down for a retest into this level here before we continue the bullish move to the upside, right? Overall, I am still short-term bullish on volatility 50. And the only thing that would actually change this bias for me is if price were to now turn around and become bearish. So if we were to get this candle here, turn around and become bearish and just keep trading and perhaps breaking below this level in here, that is when my bias will change and it will go back to bearish, right? But for now, we are still overall bullish until we get up into around these levels in here, which is basically the level I've highlighted, right? So I am still bullish on this market. So let's move on to volatility 25-1S, which has also been a really good front runner as well since I've added it, because we've had, you know, 3 calls on this so far for this week, and all 3 calls have gone accordingly, right? So let's look at volatility 25-1S. Yesterday, I did say that we could see a retracement happening. And I did actually, I'm not sure if I did cover the specific level, but I did say that at this specific level here on the H4 chart, we could see a rejection and the buy is going to come in really, really quickly. I think I did also send a separate video to the paid group guys regarding the specific levels that I was looking at. And as you can see, that played out really, really well. So I am overall bullish bias at the moment on, not overall, let's just say short-term bullish bias at the moment on volatility 25-1S, expecting it to push up quite a bit, to be very frank, right? So I will be expecting it to leave, to come back into around these levels in here, right? So that is basically my expectation. Not really much I'm going to speak about here because we did speak about this yesterday on this. On the daily chart, you can see that my overall target on the daily chart is still coming down into here, right? So what I am expecting this to be is a possible pullback into around these levels here on the daily chart, or maybe even a wick back into this level here before we see this market continue trading back down, right? Not obviously all the way down to around there. As I said, I do get a bit carried away, but back down into around there before we see other price action moves, perhaps a pullback and then a continuation back to the downside, right? So that is my overall thoughts on this market. Not really much I can cover on volatility 25 on a lower time frame. The reason for that is because it's very, very messy when you look at it lower. The lower the time frame, it gets a bit more messier, right? So I was looking at this level here. for a possible pullback for a buy. And this was my notes basically that I made on this H4 chart, that if price closes above here, that you will get buys. And as you can see, price closed above, and then the next candle wicked into the zone that I was watching, and it went up. Unfortunately, I was asleep and I did not participate in this buy. I did not put any pending orders. The reason for that is because I would have had to put a stop order here, and I do not trade buy stops or sell stops. I only trade limit orders in terms of pending orders, right? So what I would look for is a possible pullback into this level before I participate in a buy. If I can get that, then I would most likely participate. If not, then I'll wait for the retracement and then I'll get in. The reason I don't participate in buy stops and sell stops is because it's very it's basically chasing after price. I know it's a matter of price coming to you, but what I've noticed in terms of buy stops and sell stops is generally price can wick and activate your order and then go in the opposite direction or take you into huge drawdown before it goes, right? So you're entering basically under the assumption that the momentum. So for instance, if price is down here, making a bit of a pattern, right? And then you put a buy stop above here, then you're basically counting on the fact that the momentum that came in here would carry price into your buy stop and keep it going, right? Which is, come on, guys, like in terms of the actual market, the market doesn't move like that. So I would expect price to come up, maybe wick do its thing around there, pull back down, push up, and then maybe go back up, or all of those things, right? So what I prefer to do is I prefer to trade a buy limit. So if price is coming down, then I would identify a zone where I expect price to turn, and then we'd get something like that, and then I'm triggered into my trade. Very little to no drawdown, and I'm basically in on the beginning of a move and I go up, right? So that is what I do, and that is why I like to trade limit orders rather than stop orders, right? Cool. So anyway, that's it from my side. Not really much more I can speak about on these sessions. Remember, if you have any wow, I just lost my English. All right. Remember, if you have any sort of ideas, right, anything that you want to share in terms of how we could make these sessions a bit better, just drop it down in the comments. If there's any other charts that you would basically like me to look at in terms of synthetics, just drop it down in the comments. I do not look at crash. I do not look at boom. I do not trade those markets. So please don't expect me to look at those markets because I don't trade them, right? So anything else in terms of the synthetics, I'm talking about volatility or step index, then you can speak to me about it. I do look at step index and I do have setups that I have shared on step index with the paid group gens, right? But for now, I am not sharing this on these sessions, right? Because I can't really share everything with you guys. And a lot of what I am doing at the moment is, trial and error as well, because I am delving into these markets very newly as well. They're not part of the other stuff that I used to look at, because I used to only look at the volatility 100, 75, 50, 25, and 10. I never used to look at the 1Ss and the step index and all of those, right? But since those markets are moving a bit slow, or were moving a bit slow, because they are starting to pick up now, I decided to look at a few of the other markets, right? But anyway, before I make this video longer than it needs to be, that is it from my side. Until next time, it is a pleasure as always to share, and I am wishing you guys a blessed and a profitable trading day. Catch you guys next time.